really think there are two things that I'm going to cover in this video that could be extremely helpful. Maybe more. One of the things that a lot of us have been feeling and saying is PSA is grading cards harder. They're taking a long time to get their cards back to us, and they're coming back with lower grades than they deserve. And we're looking, oh, this is this horrible thing. This is awful. But is it? Is it possible that we could take these tougher grading standards and actually come out ahead because of it? And you say, well, how could we come out ahead if they're grading things harder? Who is it bad for if they're grading things harder? It's bad for dealers. It's bad for sellers. It's great for collectors. It's great for collectors because more nice cards are in more affordable price ranges. So one thing that I really want to make a point about in this video is that there is a way to take advantage of the tougher grading standards. Number two thing that I want to make a point about is we should not be saying, I'm going to buy a 6. My collection is all 6s. My collection is all 7s. Because then we're getting caught up in the number. Then we're getting caught up in the grade. The grade should be a guide, not a law. It is a guide for us. It is, this card is fairly nice, or this card is really, really nice, or this card has a lot of flaws. So there's not like a fine line between a 3 and a 4 or a 4 and a 5. There's a lot of gray areas that fall between there. So we should be buying the card, not the grade, 100%. But the grade can be providing for us a guide, and there is a way to utilize that to our advantage. I think this video could be very helpful if you consider those things. Please watch all the way to the end on this one. I think there are some super valuable points that will help. Again, remember, I have no agenda. I'm on nobody's side. I'm just trying to share things that I do when I buy, and I'm even going to use that most recent purchase that I shared with you the other day about my Christy Matheson T206 card, and I'm going to use that as an example of how to take advantage of the current climate with grading.
All right, so this is some data that I compiled the other day. I used it in a recent video as well, but we're going to look at it from a different angle here because there's a lot of good information to look at. So what I did is I went through several different cards, and I found the average sale price of these cards at every different grade. A 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and so on. On the left column are PSA average sales. The right column are SGC average sales. Now, if you look at the bottom here, I highlighted a section. That's where it looks to me like the values tend to increase more than they were before that. The jump in price from an SGC 5 to a 5.5 is 62%. Whereas above that, it's a small increase steadily. Then if we look at the jump from a 5 to a 6 in PSA, it's over 100%. So because of that, to me, I look at the 5, and the 5 stands out. Everything above a 5 seems to really be jumping in price. So I'm going to target a 5. I'm going to target the grade before the jump in price, before the percentage jump really takes off. like it does above a 5 for this card. Every card's going to be different. So let's look at another one. Let's look at a 58 Hank Aaron. So again, you see this steady increase in price and average sale price. This is an average of a whole bunch of different cards. And then we look for where does the jump tend to take off. For the SGC, from the 4.5 to a 5, look at the jump in value. Look at the jump in sale price. The 5 is over 200% more. Now, is it that the 4.5 was a dog 4.5 and the 5 was a beautiful one? Maybe. But when we look over there, the 5 to the 5.5 in PSA, that's a 44% jump. So once again, right around that 4.5, 5 grade is when things are really starting to accelerate in the price. So I would be targeting for this card a 4.5 to a 5. Because to me, that's about the place that the price jumps tend to get a lot higher. Every card has a different sweet spot or a soft spot in the pricing. Before I spend a bunch of money on a card, I want to find where that's at. Let's look at a Willie McCovey. So again, the 1 is 53, a 2 is 67, a 2.5 is 77, a 3 is 87. You've got these kind of normal jumps. And then from a 3 to a 4, it takes a big jump. And then it takes a big jump down below. It takes a big jump down below in that 5 to 6 and 6 to 7 range. So let's focus there. If we look at the 5 compared to the 6 in the average PSA sale, that's a huge jump in price. It goes up by 77% from a 5 to a 6. And then from a 6 to a 7, it goes up 152%. So again, this is all budget dependent. If I have a low budget for this card, I might go for the 3 before the jump to the 4. If I have a medium budget for it, I might go for the 5 instead of the 6. If I've got a lot of money for it, I'm going to get the 6 instead of the 7 because the huge jump in price from the 6 to the 7 tells me that the value is in a 5 to a 6. Now, again, I'm not married to a grade. We're not just grade shopping. The grade, again, is a guide. It's not the law. We're going to talk about that in a second. But there are a lot of people with this card that appear to be enamored with a 7. Why not get a really nice 6? Why not get an undergraded 6? And again, I'm going to touch on that in a second. So the 55 Jackie Robinson, again, found the average of all the cards. Before I spend $1,000 on a card or $500 on a card, I'm going to take a few minutes to find what the averages are selling for at all the different grades. I mean, to do that for this Jackie Robinson, it probably took 10 minutes. So I add the average of all the different grades. And you see this gradual increase in price from a 1.5 to a 2, a 2 to a 2.5, a 2.5 to a 3. And then we go, where is there a jump in price? And to me, it starts right after the 4, right around that 4.5 mark. Again, in a lot of vintage cards, it's usually around the 5, somewhere between the 3.5 to the 6.5. But from a 4.5 to a 5, a half a grade, it goes up by 37%. From a 5 to a 6, it goes up almost 50%. And then from a 6 to a 7, it goes up almost 70%. So why not buy a really nice 5 instead of a 6? Why not buy a really nice 6 instead of a 7? There are a lot of nice 6s that are better than 7s, and a lot of nice 5s that are better than 6s. So the first thing I think we need to do is identify the soft spots in the market by grade, because a lot of people want a certain grade. I'm not going to go below a 5. I'm not going to go below a 6. So here's the recent Christy Matheson that I bought. That's the actual card right there on the right. So before I spent, $1,000 on the card, I looked at the market. I found the recent sales for PSA. The average recent sale was $765 for a 1, $1,150 for a 2, $2,075 for a 3, $2,303 for a 3.5, and $2,409 for a 4. The jump in price from a 1 to a 2 is 50%. But the jump in price from a 2 to a 3, that's a huge jump in price. To go from a 2 to a 3, it's almost doubling. It's going up 80% from a 2 to a 3. So if I am going to be buying this card, I want to find the sweet spot. Look at the difference between a 3 to a 4. The difference between a 3 and a 4 is not that much. So I would never buy a 3 here. I'd buy the 4 because it's only 16% more for the 4 than the 3. Again, though, I want a nice 4. I don't want to buy a dog 4 just because it's a 4 and a little bit more than a 3. So to me, the soft spot here in the market is the 2 right before the huge jump to a 3. So that's why I targeted a 2. And that's why I bought a 2. So then you go, okay, I'm targeting a 2. I want to get a really nice 2. I want to get an undergraded 2. So here are the takeaways. Every card has a soft spot in the pricing. Do a little bit of research and find where is the soft spot before the big jump. And most people don't buy the card. They actually buy the grade. They say, I want to have a 6. It's like a bragging thing. I think, like a lot of us, PSA is grading harder. If so, we can take advantage of this. If you haven't seen the video that I posted recently on understanding the evolution of PSA slabs, there are 10 different slabs that PSA has used over the years. And by knowing the differences, we can tell how long ago a card was graded by PSA. And if their standards are getting harder, it's pretty important to know, is this a recent grade? Is this an original grade? Is this a grade from 15 years ago? So if you haven't checked this out, you really should check this one out to get a timeline for when it was graded. If you buy a card in the sweet spot and you buy a recently difficultly graded card with the tougher PSA standards that they're using now, you're going to get good value and you're going to get a nice card. I believe the Christy Matheson I bought would have gotten a 3 10 years ago, maybe even a 3.5, maybe even a 4. But I bought it at a 2 price and it's undergraded compared to the current standards. Find the sweet spot in pricing. Buy a recently graded card with those tougher standards so you're getting a nicer one.